Hey, what's up everyone? And I know I've been rather behind on my movie reviews and everything. Feels almost like deja vu from last year, but no, I did see several of them, and here's a review on one that I saw just recently that's been out for a couple weeks now, and that is Ghostbusters Afterlife. Yes, in case you're wondering, this is the third movie in the franchise, even though it's been more than 30 years since the second movie that came out in 1989. Well, as I say in the second movie, better late than never, right? No. Well, in case you're wondering, yes, this has been talked about for decades after decades. I mean, ever since I was a kid and was a fan growing up at the first two films, which we all can agree the first film, released in 1984, is a timeless classic, a masterpiece, greatest horror comedy of all time, starring four of the greatest Saturday Night Live comedians alongside Rick Moranis, Annie Potts, Sigourney Weaver. I mean, one of the best films of all time. And the second film, while not as good as the first, directed once again by Ivan Reitman, who also directed the first one, is very watchable and enjoyable. May not be as good as the first, but believe me, I enjoyed the hell out of it too. So I was anticipating a third movie for many years, and at some point I just kind of forgotten about it and lost track and didn't think it was ever going to happen. I mean, it was talked about for year after year after year, and I could tell they wanted to do the same thing like they did with Indiana Jones. They didn't want to release it right away. They wanted to give fans of this generation, who grew up with the generation of these movies from the 80s, something to look back on, a little piece of nostalgia to really enjoy, to relive their childhoods of some of the greatest movies of all time. And that's exactly what they did with that film, and that's what they wanted to do with this film. But then, of course, after the death of Harold Ramis, which was a pretty tragic loss of one of the main stars of the film, it seemed like it was going to be rather impossible, so they went with this abomination right after. And we can all agree that was a film that none of us wanted, and sure enough it bombed at the box office, so Ivan Reitman agreed to it as a producer alongside the Bridesmaids director, and yeah, we can all agree it was a piece of crap. So the son of Ivan Reitman, Jason Reitman, who made a cameo in the second movie, decided, yeah, I'm going to step in and give the fans exactly what they wanted. And that's pretty much what this film is. Now, okay, there are going to be some spoilers in this, nothing major, but keep in mind before watching this video if you haven't seen the movie. If you don't want spoilers, then turn the video off right now. Otherwise, yes, I can safely say this was worth the wait. Now, of course, I didn't expect it to be as good as the first two movies, especially not as good as the first one, because, yeah, it's just like when Indiana Jones 4 came out. Everybody expected it to be as good as the first three films, and they didn't get exactly what they were expecting, and everybody shit on it and called it a piece of crap. And I don't think it was meant to be, and I don't think that's what this film was trying to be either. It was more or less trying to be a fan service by bringing back some of the original actors, which they did later on in the film. Now, this film brings in some new actors. You got, of course, McKenna Grace, who we've seen in several films in the past, and the looks, physical traits on her are fantastic, resembling of Egon Spengler, who, of course, turns out to be the granddaughter of him, as well as, of course, Finn Wolfhard, who you probably know as Mike from Stranger Things, which I do find funny how he plays a Ghostbuster, in the Halloween special, and, well, sure enough, he's in this movie. I don't know if that's just a paradox right there or whatnot. And of course, they are joined by their single mother, who, of course, gets evicted from their apartment, and they have to move out to the country. I wasn't sure how this was going to play out, continuity-wise, with the other two films, and I was interested to see how it was going to do so. I remember seeing the first teaser trailer, which showing the Ecto-1 vehicle inside of a barn, and just playing the music and everything. It felt like a real nostalgia overload right there, and I knew right off the bat that this was going to be exactly that. Now, the film does simply that. It has a lot of the music from the first movie. It has a lot of connections and Easter eggs that you'll notice as you watch the film. And you really have to pay close attention as you're watching the film. And I definitely recommend watching the first two films for any of you kids of this generation who haven't before watching this one. Otherwise, you're going to miss a lot of things. But people like us who grew up with these original classics, these are the kind of things that you will take note of and just go nuts for. But yeah, McKenna Grace's character, Phoebe Spengler, is the typical genius, and she takes after her grandfather pretty well. They don't know much about their grandfather and everything like that. They show kind of a CG rendition of him at the beginning, and they do kind of the right thing considering he passed in real life, and that's what happens to him in this movie. He dies and leaves the farm, which they call the dirt farm, to them. So yeah, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's not in the big city, so it's definitely different from the first two films, and it may seem like a bit of a departure. And meanwhile, Finn Wolfhard's character is trying to like fit in, be the cool guy. He finds the Ecto-1, and that's what they do. They find a lot of remains of what Egon Spengler and the rest of the Ghostbusters have. And of course, you also got Paul Rudd playing the teacher, who is a really good character and everything. He's really funny and very likable. But I just find it funny how every time he's teaching a class, he's not really teaching a class, he's just showing random movies. Like one day it's a dog mauling a lot of animals and people, and then the next day the original Child's Play movie, which I find hilarious how they're showing an R-rated movie to a bunch of kids. And the other kid that's kind of the main character is named Podcast. Pretty likable and funny, but yeah, this movie does open itself up to a lot of cheesy jokes in there. And you kind of go with it, because I think the film was aware of that. You know, especially out of McKenna Grace's character, and that's what she does a lot in the film. She tells a lot of cheesy jokes. I think what the mother says a lot are very cheesy too, and just feels a little off to me at half the times. But I don't think she was trying to be the main character of the movie, you know, she was more or less a side character. But yeah, that's the whole gist of the movie right there. It's meant to be simply a fan service for the most part, and it throws a lot of connections in with the original films, mainly the first one. And you even get cameos from other characters from the original films, except for Rick Moranis, who, as we all know, has not really appeared in many films lately. I think ever since his wife died of cancer in real life, he's more or less taken time off from acting and, well, has pretty much been retired most of the time. But he'll come back. I mean, he did say he would return in the original films, but I guess this one never really struck his interest. But you do get an appearance at the beginning from Annie Potts, who you know as Janine Nelnitz, you know, the receptionist from the first two films. And eventually, towards the end, you get kind of a rather huge reenactment from the first movie. You get the baby Stay Puft Marshmallow Mans, you get the dogs from the original films, you know, the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper. Even though it's not in the big city, it's in the country, but it has a big connection and main reason why it's out there, which I wouldn't give away. But the special effects are really good. I like how you have one of the main ghosts, and it's not Slimer though, it's a different type of ghost which seems very similar to him. I like how when they find the Ecto-1, they're chasing him, and it even has that thing with the seat pulls out of the Ecto-1. And I even like when they're locked up in jail and they're like, yeah, you get one phone call, who are you gonna call? That's a nice little nod there. And leading up to the epic climax, this could have worked out great if it wasn't for a couple of cheesy jokes thrown in that one scene. I mean, I know it wasn't trying to be epic like the original, but come on, they could have done that a little bit better. I like the whole ghost trap on wheels thing. I thought that was a really cool gadget. I like the new ideas that it comes up with and it throws in there and makes great use of. And of course, you couldn't argue the main three Ghostbusters coming in at the last couple minutes of the movie. So, I would say spoiler alert there, but if you've seen the teaser trailers, come on, you know it's coming right there. I mean, that was the scene where everybody applauded at the end. And to make it even better, they throw a little nod and little dedication to Harold Ramis, which I think was very satisfying. I mean, it's better than a freaking statue of him on that 2016 garbage. And I almost teared up at the end. For us die-hard Ghostbusters fans that grew up with the original two films, you'll know exactly how it feels when you watch this scene. A nice dedication to him at the end, and, well, yes, it even has the theme song at the end of the movie as well. And also, be sure to stay for not only the mid-credits, but also after the credits, because, well, I'm not going to give it away there. You won't be sorry, trust me. You won't regret it, especially the after-credit scene. It could be hinting a sequel, but I don't know. I think it's best to just leave it the way it is. I mean, it was great to see the original cast come back and pass it on to a new generation and everything like that, but sometimes you just gotta leave it alone. I mean, Christ, they're making a fifth Indiana Jones movie, which I'm not gonna get too carried away with, but yeah. This was made simply for nostalgic purpose. It may not have been as good as the original two films, but trust me, it was definitely a much better fan service than that 2016 garbage was. Believe me. I was glad to see the original cast back, playing their original characters, and bringing back something that made this series great. Something for us fans that we grew up on as kids, even though of course this was a little bit before I was born, the first film to be exact. And well, the second film came out when I was rather little, but watching these movies as a kid, I was very satisfied to see this one. So, great piece of nostalgia there. Good job, Jason Reitman, for bringing back the franchise the proper way, to giving us exactly what we wanted. So, my final verdict is, Rockin' Wii Remote Wii Motion Plus up, and the Plain Wii Remote up. Believe me, it was a good fun time if you're a fan of this series. So, till next time, keep watching.